If you heard or read the news lately, you'd be thinking that artificial intelligence. Let me try that again. I'm not going to edit it. I'm going to keep it in camera. So, if you have read or heard anything on the news lately about AI, it would be this: that artificial intelligence is literally drinking the world dry. We have all seen the headlines. You're actually looking at one of those headlines from Time magazine where they are saying that AI could use as much as water as 1.3 billion people by 2013. This was according to a UN report. Sadly, by the time I wrote this script, this report, I hope, did not come. I have to verify again. I'll go through this report and I'll update the story, but please stick with me. I'll try to say my piece. Your See, this has been a discussion. We have heard somebody. I personally heard two or three people in my life saying, uh, "You use ChatGPT. Don't you think it would drink such and such amount of water just to answer one question, just to answer one of your prompts?" Hmm? It sounds terrifying, right? It actually sounds like a dystopian crisis. But there is this choice problem. It's completely mathematically and probably fake, right? Welcome back to the channel. Today we are talking about, and we are taking a hard factual look at the AI water crisis. We are going to look at the raw numbers thanks to some brilliant analysis by researcher and blogger Andy Masley, who made a viral breakdown of this topic, trying to bring some sanity back into the internet and conversation about AI and water usage by the data centers. We are going to compare AI footprint to other industries and also examine the very real trade-off between water and electricity and figure out why the media is so desperately trying to sell a panic when it is about this topic. Let's dive in, right? To understand basically why the AI water issue is vastly overstated, we have to start with actual numbers, right? Because when you read an article that says AI could use as much as 1.3 billion people by 2030, UN report warns, it sounds a lot. It sounds scary. But the most important thing that is missing here is the context. And you take out that context, it is scary, right? Look at that title. It scares the bejesus out of you. So, what is the truth here? Let's look at the United States alone for the year 2023. All the US data centers combined, right? These include, remember, these are not only data centers for AI, these include services like Amazon, it included services like Netflix, it include services like AWS, whatever you take that is cloud based. All these data centers were combined together that are in United States. And when the numbers were crunched, these data centers, not just AI alone, all these streaming services, data centers, and other services also combined with AI, consumed anywhere between 200 to 250 million gallons of fresh water daily. That is what data from the United States says. Now look, now let us look at how much fresh water the entirety of United States of America consumes in a single day. Are you ready for the answer? It's approximately 132 billion gallons. I am not saying this. The United States official government data says this. Do a cursory Google search. They'll tell you the approximate usage of freshwater of United States on a single day is somewhere around 132 billion gallons. Now look at the math. 250 million versus 132 billion. That comes down to 0.2% of the overall usage. As I said, do the math. All the centers in the United States will account for only 0.2% of the nation's freshwater consumption. So if you are not convinced by this, let us take a step further and let us bring it down to a personal level. The average American lifestyle consumes about 422 gallons of water per day. What is 422 gallons in liters? Let me do a Google search because I am not that smart. I know, but I want to clarify 422. See, I have, okay, I'm not going to out myself. Hmm, I'm not going to out myself, but let's bring it down to something that we understand. 422 gallons to liters, that is 1597.444 liters. So, an average American lifestyle consumes about 422 gallons, that is 1500 liters of water per day. This is 2023 data. Again, I am basing a lot of my arguments on the article that Wesley has written. So, in 2023, AI data centers used roughly the same amount of water as 25,000 Americans used on a daily basis. So, again, these headlines are scary, but reality is far more, far from these headlines. See, even if AI grows exponentially by the end of this decade or by the mid of the next decade, we are going to talk about a water footprint that is what, 25 lakh people out of millions of people. See, I think what scares is the entire discussion behind AI. Data centers, I don't think they scare on their own as much as AI scares the people, because somewhere they got it in their minds that AI will end humanity. I'm not talking about the Matrix movie or any other movie. Somewhere this discourse has started where AI is the end of everything that is human. No. And the new target that people found is the data centers for AI. Hmm? See, frankly, the amount of water that data centers need is minuscule, in my opinion. See, this is US. The same discussion is taking place in India, albeit in a lower tone, but nonetheless, this discussion is being raked up in India also, because once you want that data sovereignty, you need data centers. So inevitably, India is also going to build a lot of data centers in our territory. So you'll oppose with the same logic? Looks like people are trying to oppose with the same logic, despite there being no credible evidence to support it. And the idea this argument sustains on is the lack of awareness of people. They're trying to allude or trying to go to the psychological fear of the people. They're trying to rake up that thing, which is worrisome. So, if AI is only using a tiny fraction of our water, then who is using the rest? This is where you have to get context. Huh? So, let's talk about other industries. Let's talk about other industries that are actually using huge amounts of water. The example that Wesley gives is the t-shirts that you wear. The t-shirt that you are wearing, the cotton t-shirt that you are wearing, requires 700 gallons of water per day. To my Indian family, what is 700 gallons, you ask? The answer is Google Translate says 2649 liters. Andy clearly points out that making one t-shirt uses the same amount of water as 1.3 million AI prompts. Kids are doing their entire PhD with 1000 prompts. Imagine how many PhDs can be attained with 1.3 million AI prompts. So there is a clear distinction. There is, you have to give it that, man. You have to be realistic. So the second example, what about lunch? The lunch that you cook, the fast food item that you buy, how many liters of uh, fresh water is being used to produce that? Think about the use of water in agricultural industry. Huh? Think of use of water in uh, fast food industry. Agriculture is not an industry, agriculture is a sector. I regret the phrasing and I feel stupid for that phrasing. Coming back to the coming back to the discussion. So see, look at the amount of water that farmers use on a daily basis. So you'll say water usage in agriculture is bad because they're using so much of fresh water. No, it has to be looked at under the lens of context. Context is important. This discussion that data centers are running up water resources dry lacks context. It's a clear case of fear mongering, right? So whether you like it or not, the industries that you think and the industries that you rely on a daily basis to clothe you, to feed you, to um, ensure that the lifestyle you are living in is sustained, consumes far more water, fresh water, than a AI data center combined. So why don't we hear news stories with these viral headlines, these apocalyptic headlines about those industries, those sectors? Why only limited to AI? We accept, right? We accept that agriculture, fashion, sports use massive amounts of water. We view them as normal parts of the economy. But because of the entire discussion around AI has so much negative connotations, sorry, uh, people miss the context, the importance of context. AI alone gets isolated, and you get these kinds of headlines whose sole idea is to get you all riled up and get as many clicks as possible. So, what is the reality here? See, at this point, you might be thinking, okay, on a global or a national scale, it's not a big deal. But what about locally? What if they build a data center right next to my house or my colony or my area? Yes, that is a valid question, right? Okay, yeah, you were saying nationally, internationally, this is what the number says. What about a data center that is coming up right next to my house? The systems that are used in data center run incredibly hot. You have to cool them down, and there are two ways of doing it. Primarily, there are other ways, but primarily there are two ways of doing it. You can use water through evaporating cooling, or you can use electric air conditioning systems. Majority of the data centers use water for cooling because of its efficiency, right? If a company builds a data center in a town that has its ground levels, water ground levels are already low, and they don't plan properly when they are building this data center, yes, then there might be a problem. That applies to everything, that applies to any industry that they are building in your region. If they don't plan properly, if they don't do their research properly, and if your water levels, groundwater levels are already stressed, yet knowing this you continue building your data center, your factory, any factory that uses water, groundwater, then there will be a problem. That is where the government intervention comes in. That is where the policymakers come. They have to build safeguards to ensure that such things do not happen. They have to ensure that even companies on their own have to ensure that before building anything, they have to do proper research in that area. It requires regulation, it requires local level planning, it requires engagement with the local population. So I don't know where this outrage comes into, right? We don't want data centers because they drink up all our water. Even Satya Nadella has to come out and say a single data center uses as much as water a single restaurant uses. Moreover, the water that is used in data center does not get is not thrown out. It is not sent into drain. It is a closed loop system, meaning calculating for evaporation of certain quantity of water, majority of the water is recycled and reused again. It's a closed loop system, nothing leaks out. The only leak that happens is through evaporation, and a small amount that is evaporated is replenished, ensured to ensure that cycle is fully functioning, right? And people do often forget the alternative that is available, using air conditionings. Using electricity to cool these massive systems, these massive buildings, requires staggering amounts of money. Where do you think that power comes from? Is there, is the grid of our country ready to handle that kinds of electricity loads? We are having discussions with using a small percentage of electric vehicles, whether we are having discussions whether we can, our grid can handle the influx of electric vehicles or not. You are talking about data centers that use electrical air conditioning to cool the systems. See, as I said, these are closed loops systems, right? Compared to the alternative to cool the systems, this is the more economically and environmentally friendly ways. When you stop these data centers from using little water, what they end up doing is they'll use all of your power, or at least they'll attract majority of your power. What happens when data centers or companies or factories start using more power? Invariably the price of electricity goes up, the amounts of electricity that they draw goes up, and once the need goes up, electric companies inevitably they'll start thinking there is need, so we have to produce, so they'll start burning more non-renewable energies to feed that demand. So one way or the other, we are kind of trading one problem for the other by fear mongering something that we can manage, something that we can replenish, that we can renew. We are distracting the entire discussion from one problem to the one that is actually in front of us. So, of all the narratives, why did this stick? Right? Why was it so convincing that people started believing that AI will run the ocean dry? The Great Lakes of America will dry up in a week or so. The Great Lakes in India will dry up in a day or so. Why did this argument come up? Because people suck at scaling and people want clicks. There are some bad actors that wants clicks, that want views, that want eyeballs. So they found a new boogeyman to scare you without providing context, without providing statistics, without providing data, nothing. They started this panic. In India, data centers aren't even built in a proper way. This fear mongering has started up. So my hope is that common sense prevails. See, the idea that AI is bad, AI is this, AI is that, we have to stop treating it as something negative. We have to somewhere accept that AI is here to stay. AI will have implications on your life, and also start to understand, if done right, AI is a force for good. It will actually end up simplifying your life, bettering your life, and start treating it as a simple industry like you treat others. And like any other industry, it will also use some resources. So you have to accept that. So, what is the solution to anything? You bring in laws, you bring in regulation, you bring in oversight, you bring in safeguards. That is how you approach this topic. See, the idea should be that we have to navigate our future with artificial intelligence in a responsible way. We have to look it from very practical point of view. We have to bring in policies that are in tune with overall good, and not about some clickbaity title or clickbaity video that you see or we share. So if you want to criticize AI, yes, there are valid topics, discussions that we can have about AI, the problems with AI. We can talk about copyright. We can talk about the real problem, one of the real problems, the loss of jobs because of AI. The more importantly, how much strain it is going to put on the electrical grid that is already stressed in our country. Are recently a large percentage of our population recently got electricity. So it's about context. It's about, you have to look at it that. But the water being the main boogeyman when it comes to AC, no, you have to look at the facts. You have to look at the math. And from the looks of it, it looks like it is unnecessarily being blown out of proportion. So thank you for watching. A huge shout out to Andy and everybody else that is doing the hard work of crunching the numbers, so people like can me simply copy it and present before you. So if you found this breakdown helpful, hit the like button, subscribe for more. um, I'll try to do more fact based analysis. Let me know in the comments what's the wildest AI myth that you have heard recently. Stay curious, stay practical. I'll see you in the next one. Peace.